A forklift is a powerful and effective load shifting tool, but can be extremely dangerous if used incorrectly. Forklifts have stability characteristics that are not well understood by many operators, and this can lead to the risk of tip over. If you understand and follow the principles of forklift stability, many accidents can be avoided. You can't afford not to be stability aware. This program covers the stability triangle, longitudinal stability, lateral stability, load capacity, dynamic stability, the working environment, and forklift tip-over procedures. Understanding how a forklift becomes unstable is essential to safe operation. The center of gravity is the point in an object at which all of an object's weight is concentrated, and is the balance point. An object is said to be stable if its center of gravity lies within the outline of its points of support. The center of gravity of an unladen forklift lies at a point just behind and below the operator's seat. Both the forklift and any load it carries have an individual center of gravity. When a forklift lifts a load, the two centers of gravity form a combined center of gravity that is always placed somewhere between the two. You need to understand how a forklift's center of gravity can become unsafe, resulting in a tip over. Although most forklifts stand on four wheels, the hinged rear axle makes the forklift behave as if it was standing on only three wheels. This creates a stability triangle that is used to determine a safe center of gravity when operating a forklift. The corners of the stability triangle are formed by the center of each front wheel and the center of the rear axle. The center of gravity of a forklift must be kept within the stability triangle when the forklift is either static or moving, or it will tip over. A forklift's center of gravity can move outside the stability triangle in two directions: longitudinally, forwards and backwards, and laterally, sideways. In most cases, forklifts are counterbalanced, and the fulcrum or lever point is the front wheel axle. This means that the load carried by the forks is counterbalanced by the weight of the forklift body on the other side of the fulcrum point. In this example, the load carried by the forks is too heavy for the counterbalance. The combined center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle in front of the axle, causing the forklift to tip forward. Even a safe load can make a forklift tip forwards if the load is picked up on the tip of the forks or the load is tilted forward. This increases the distance of the load from the wheels and moves the combined center of gravity outside the stability triangle. Driving down an incline with a load downhill can shift the center of gravity outside the front axle and cause the forklift to tip forward and lose the load. Lateral instability occurs when the center of gravity moves sideways outside of the stability triangle. For example, driving across an inclined, rough or uneven surface can move the center of gravity to the side of the forklift and cause a side rollover. Tip over while cornering is a common accident caused by cornering too sharply, cornering on an incline, or driving at too high a speed. As you can see, the center of gravity moved sideways outside the stability triangle, causing the forklift to tip over sideways. Forklifts have the lowest lateral stability when the center of gravity is furthermost back in the safety triangle. This occurs when driving unloaded, tilting fork masts backward, and driving up an incline. This is because the center of gravity lies in the narrow part of the stability triangle, and its line of action only has to move a small distance to be outside the stability triangle. Always drive your forklift cautiously and at a safe speed. When you pick up a load, it will change the center of gravity of the forklift to a combined forklift and load center of gravity. Forklifts have a load capacity plate that includes information on the maximum weight and the maximum load center distance of any load that can be moved by the forklift. The load capacity of a forklift is the maximum weight it can lift at a specific load center distance. The load center distance is the distance from the heel of the fork to the center of gravity of the load. The load center distance of a load changes the center of gravity of the forklift, which varies according to the load and mast lift height. In this example, the combined load center and forklift center of gravity are safely within the stability triangle. However, if the same load was raised on the tips of the forks, the combined load center and forklift center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle, causing the forklift to tip forwards. Keep in mind that any increases in the load center distance will decrease the weight of the load you can safely carry. Carrying a load on only one of the forks is inherently dangerous and causes sideways instability. Always ensure the load center is in the middle of the forks, especially when carrying a long or wide load. In some cases, you may need to use a load spreader so that the load center can be kept in the center of the forks and the load can be better supported. You must understand the weight of the load to be handled. Weigh your load, check the paperwork, or calculate the weight by breaking it down into individual units. Your load must weigh less than the capacity indicated on your forklift's load capacity plate. Forklifts are often unwittingly operated at the edge of their stability envelope. If the back wheels lift from the ground, your forklift will be many times over its safe load limit. Attachments are used for unusual loads and will change your forklift's load capacity due to increased weight. A forklift may appear stable when it's static. However, dynamic forces that result when the vehicle and load are put into motion can be potentially fatal. To understand some of the dynamic effects when a forklift is moving, it may help if you think of a heavy steel arrow hanging freely from the center of gravity. This arrow will always point to where the center of gravity is acting when the forklift is turning, braking, or moving on an incline, and represents the apparent shift of the center of gravity. Dynamic stability incorporates both longitudinal and lateral stability. When an industrial truck fitted with a jib lifts a freely suspended load, dynamic stability changes. As the industrial truck turns a corner, the load will normally swing out, decreasing the truck's stability. As with all attachments, the load capacity must be reduced when lifting a freely suspended load, and you must refer to your forklift supplier to update the new load capacity. There have been a number of fatalities when forklift operators attempt a sharp U-turn with no load on the forks. The center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle, and the forklift turns over due to the dynamic force of the movement. Stopping a forklift is not the same as stopping a car. A forklift has only two small braking wheels. Keep in mind, studies have shown that if you are traveling at 12 kilometers per hour, it will take you 7 to 8 meters to come to a complete halt in an emergency situation. If you brake too quickly, the result is dynamic instability and a tip over. Even when traveling at 6 kilometers an hour, it will take you 2.9 to 3.2 meters to come to a safe halt. This distance may double if you're distracted or traveling on a slippery terrain. Accelerating backwards too quickly can cause the center of gravity to move outside the stability triangle, resulting in a forward tip over. Dynamic stability is also affected by the movement and position of the mast. For example, if the mast is moved to full forward tilt, the center of gravity moves forward. If the forklift is driven while the mast is in this position, the center of gravity can more easily move outside the stability triangle, making the forklift tip over. Stability is greater when a load is lowered before traveling. Raising the load to see under it is an unsafe practice. The forklift could tip forward, and it limits braking due to the propensity to overturn. If you can't see over a load, drive in reverse or have somebody direct you. Never travel with a load or the forks raised, as this causes instability in all directions. If the machine is not in good working order, dynamic instability can occur. Always carry out your pre-operational and startup checks and report any problems. Whenever you undertake a task, it's essential to assess the effect of the specific operating environment on your forklift's stability. The surface a forklift operates on can cause serious stability problems. When driving up a gradient, the center of gravity is moved backwards in the stability triangle. If you drive a forklift on an incline, you must keep the load on the uphill side. Do not reverse up an incline. The center of gravity moves far outside the stability triangle and can cause the load to fall off and the forklift to tip. Never drive with the load facing downhill. If you can't see over the load, get someone to direct you. Never drive across a sloping surface, as this causes severe sideways instability. Drive directly up and down a slope. Uneven floors, rough terrains, loose objects, bumps or depressions can cause instability. Avoid driving over loose objects or on surfaces with ruts and holes. Most forklifts are designed for hard level surfaces. A soft dirt surface can cause a wheel to sink and destabilize the forklift. Only specially designed forklifts are to be used on unsealed surfaces. If you're involved in a forward or sideways tip over, you must know what to do. A seat belt can save a life or a limb. In a tip over, a seat belt can prevent you from being thrown into the mast or outside the cage. This operator stayed in the vehicle with his seatbelt on and was saved from serious injuries. Never try to jump clear or throw yourself out of an overturning forklift, even if there's no seatbelt provided. If you do, the overhead guard can crush you against the floor. Always stay inside the confines of the truck. Brace yourself by grabbing the steering wheel and planting your feet firmly on the floor panel. Lean away from the direction the forklift is tipping. Head, neck and spine injuries are not uncommon when the forklift tips over. However, if you stay within the truck, you should survive. Wear your seatbelt at all times. The number of deaths and serious injuries that occur each year show that a forklift can be dangerous if stability is not understood. To prevent your workplace from adding to these statistics, make sure you understand the stability triangle and the consequences of forward, sideways, and dynamic instability. Understand load capacity and safe traveling speeds when you operate a forklift. Never let your concentration slip, not even for a moment. Your life could depend on it.